Women Up Radio, designed to facilitate women's empowerment, improve your career, develop your talents, incorporate your passions, achieve fulfillment and success.
Hello, this is Women Up Radio, supporting Empower Women. And today we're talking about women's courage and adaptability and their talent for challenge and change. I'm joined in the studio by my guest, Gina Kirkham, a former Police Officer of the Year, who was also awarded several commendations for bravery, courage and compassion, who has now totally changed direction in her career to become a successful and very amusing author. Welcome to the programme, Gina.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning.
So, Gina, tell me about your career. How did you start? What drew you to becoming a policewoman in the first place? Because it's quite unusual to have a career policewoman that's done as well as you have. Even for a man, it's quite unusual. So for a woman, with all of this prejudice we still have against women, I think it's amazing. So tell me about you. Tell me the origins.
It stemmed actually from my childhood. I had a huge love of Enid Blyton and the Famous Five, and I very much identified with George. That was one of the early things, and I used to love being able to try and guess before the final chapter who'd done it. So after a careers talk at school, I sort of set my sights on policing. But like in those days, we're talking sort of like mid-70s. I think it was a lack of confidence and a fear of striking out into the unknown. It made me question my choices. Instead, I opted for a year-long secretarial course at college and worked towards a career as a personal assistant. I worked for the managing director of an import-export company.
Wow, so did I.
So did you?
Yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I got to travel, mainly around Europe with it. But it was only when I got divorced in my early 30s and I was left sort of like struggling financially, had a little child, a little girl to support, and I decided to revisit my childhood dream to become a police officer.
Good for you. That's brilliant.
Very, very fortunate. Merseyside Police, where I live, was actively encouraging women, but the more mature female for the role.
Really?
Yes, they had a huge shortfall of females of a certain age. And I think it was mainly because a lot of girls joined very young, some of the cadets, 18 to early 20s. Yeah. Then they marry, they had families, and because of the shift work and the demands that policing has, they left. Yep. So therefore you ended up having a shortfall of female police officers in their 30s and 40s.
Oh, that sounds absolutely amazing. I think that's brilliant. So tell me, how long did it take you to train? I mean, how long does it take to train to become a policewoman, a police officer?
It's very different nowadays to how it was when I joined, because we're talking late 80s, early 90s. But it was a residential course at there was police training centres throughout the UK, but the one for here was Bruce in Warrington.
Yes.
So, it was a 15-week course, I think it was, which was split down into 10 weeks. Then you came back and had 5 weeks on your division, then 5 weeks back at the training centre. Very intense, Monday to Friday. Yeah. You lived there, came home at weekends.
Oh my God.
I loved it, but it was heartbreaking as well because I'd never been away from my daughter before.
Oh my God, yes.
So waving her goodbye was a real tearjerker. My phone calls every night back home. Yeah. To Emma, always used to leave me sobbing in my little room.
Oh God!
So it's 15 weeks in total, but your actual whole probation is 2 years.
Oh really? God, it's longer than I realised.
Yeah.
Okay. So
2 years.
But I mean, you were really front line, so you weren't just sort of sitting in the offices. You were really out and about and doing proper policing. And being a frontline police officer takes courage in anyone's book, but many would say even more so for a woman. What do you feel about that?
I don't know. I suppose really So no matter how hard you try to be a mediator or a peacemaker as a police officer, it'll always be a confrontational role. So naturally, there's a potential for injury.
Yeah.
I suppose it's not a natural instinct as a woman to seek out physical contact, particularly if it's going to be aggressive or violent.
Yeah.
I think I'd be fibbing if I said I'd never felt afraid.
Yeah.
There were many, many occasions when I was holding my own, but absolutely quivering like a jelly inside. I think the trick is not to show the fear.
Yes.
Because that only makes you more vulnerable.
Yes. Yeah.
And through our chats, as you know, I'm very lucky. I've got a really quirky sense of humour.
Yes.
And I have a gift of the gab. So quite often in really, hairy situations where I thought it could go one way or the other, I've managed to talk myself out of it, talk the offender round, and come up with a good result, but without getting, sort of like aggressively confrontational. Having said that, I have sported quite a few black eyes and fat lips over the years. Where
oh, really?
I was an offender that hasn't quite fancied a chat.
Oh, God, right. Well, good for you. Okay.
I got better towards the end. I saw the fists coming and I did manage to start ducking.
That's good. It helps, yes. Right. So what do you think are the main challenges for women in the police? And are they different to those that are faced by male police officers?
I think the challenges on a basic level are the same for both the male and female. I suppose I'm very, very fortunate that Merseyside Police were an excellent force to work for. They were very much for equal opportunities, so you were never treated any differently, male or female. To be quite honest, the main challenges that I found, and I think maybe I'm talking for quite a few female, it's our physique.
Oh, really?
I'm 5'3" and I'm quite slightly built.
Yes.
And I think the body armour, something as simple as body armour, was a huge sort of challenge because it's the shape of the vest. It's not made for women who are curvy.
Oh, God, yeah. And so also, I suppose if you're short, it drowns you.
Well, it does. I mean, you sit in a police car and next minute you look like Tommy Turtle because your head's disappeared into body armour because it shoots up. Obviously, for men, we have different sorts of like chest sizes.
Yeah.
But for women, we have different chest sizes and we have different cup sizes. So something that could be, a 38-inch chest is not necessarily going to fit a female. My body armour was actually specially made.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were very good like that. They would get them shaped for a female. The only thing is, when mine came, I was actually quite disappointed because I think it would have fitted Madonna better. I don't think I actually saw my feet for the next 10 years of my career because of the shape of it.
Oh, God, how funny.
So, yeah, that can be a problem. And sometimes the type of vehicles that you have to drive, it gets down to your stature.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I remember when they brought some new response vehicles out and they were beautiful, all singing, all dancing with jingly janglies, everything on it.
Yeah.
And I sat in it and it was like a bucket type racing seat and I just disappeared. I was virtually lying down because, it was not adapted. And as much as I tried to adjust the seat. So I think with that one, I spent 2 years running around with a velour cushion that I took with me everywhere to sit on.
Yeah. Actually, I can understand that because I'm really petite as well. In fact, I'm probably about 1 centimetre taller than you. And I found trying to drive trucks and things like that, or trying to drive big transits or something, I could never get the seat far enough forward to be able to touch the pedals properly.
Yeah, fortunately, the big carriers that we have in the police, I don't know if you've seen them, the big yellow carriers that we have on Merseyside. They're actually, it's quite nice because you're actually sitting up high. Yeah. And they did get sort of like more, I think, I'm trying to remember exactly when they sort of relaxed the height restrictions and we started getting small men. And strange enough, once you started getting small men, equipment started being adjusted.
Oh, God, typical.
There's a disparity there.
Yeah, nothing like equality then, right? Okay.
You have the cushion, Tom, it's all right, we'll adjust the seat for you.
You need a sense of humour for things like this, don't you, really?
Absolutely. You still get your point across, but with a smile at the end of it.
Exactly, much better. But, okay, I know I'm really impressed by what I've seen of women's courage, which is linked to what you're doing in the police, obviously, because women need a lot of courage, as do men. But I'm particularly impressed by women's courage and adaptability, and also their ability to face challenges and change, either from necessity or from desire, because sometimes we do it because we've got no choice, sometimes we do it because, you know, we really love something. So can you give us a few examples that you've seen of this during your career?
I must admit, I thought long and hard about this. I think one of the big things that I felt for myself in relation to being adaptable and facing a challenge was that obviously when I joined, I wasn't young. I was in my 30s, divorced. I had a little girl, never been away from home in my life, or my daughter. Never driven on a motorway. You wouldn't think that, you know, at 30 years of age, that one of the biggest challenges that you would face would be to drive on a motorway.
I think that's so funny.
It was a huge hurdle for me, because I was so excited to be accepted into the police, and then crestfallen to think that the only way I could get to the training centre was by motorway. And sort of, I mean, I needed a change in my life. I needed to work. I've never claimed benefits in my life, and to stand on my own 2 feet. And the dream of being a police officer was such a huge thing for me, and to combine it with, you know, a financial need to look after my daughter. And obviously, in view of my age, I was going to a training centre where my nickname was Mother, because I was so much older than, you know, than everyone else there.
Yes.
I wasn't really sort of like strong, independent, or feisty at that stage.
That came later, did it?
It came later, yeah. Basically, what I ended up doing was developing this persona for myself, like a character that I could live in. And the sort of like the new Gina got me through over the years. Till in the end, I sort of became her. That was adapting me. Yes. From being, you know, the married lady with a little girl, who didn't have a job, you know, because I was a stay-at-home mum. And then all of a sudden, this massive change in my life was divorce. And being on my own with a little girl in a house that I didn't even have a sofa in.
Oh, really?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, my God.
I didn't have very much at all, but, you know, we worked well, we had fun, me and Emma, my daughter. That was a huge thing.
It sounds like the police was amazing for you. It really let you bloom completely.
It did.
And also, it sounds like Merseyside Police was superb for being supportive and things like that, because normally you don't get that impression. I mean, the sort of the public view, which is probably completely wrong and completely prejudiced, but you don't get the view that a police force or a division or a section is so supportive, and particularly towards women, and particularly towards more mature women. I mean, it's ticking all the boxes.
They did. I've got to say, from day one, when I applied, right the way to the end of my career, I never asked for any favours, you know, because I was a woman or because of the fact I had a child or anything like that. If I wanted it, I worked towards it. But, you know, Merseyside Police, the division that I worked, which was, you know, the Wirral, my colleagues, you couldn't ask for more.
Oh, wonderful.
So they were absolutely amazing. They gave me the opportunity to become. I had it in me. I just needed.
They helped you open it up. I
needed the right circumstances and situations to bring it out for me, and that's what it did. I think some of the most courageous and adaptable women that I have ever met during my whole career have got to be survivors of domestic abuse. I will take that every night when I go to bed. There are always certain instances that I dealt with and certain ladies that I met that will always stay with me.
Really?
They suffer untold sort of like physical and psychological trauma, and yet they still adapt, change, and grow. and use their experiences to help others in the same situation.
Yes.
They face so many challenges for themselves, their children and their families. To me, they are true women of courage.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's very difficult situations like that to live through that.
Yeah. So I would say that probably is the abiding foremost for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
From my career.
Oh, wonderful. That's great, because I know there's some very good women's rescue centres on the Wirral, and I know they really do help a lot, and they help people with finding something else to do, not just getting out of the situation. And for the women, I think to transfer from being a beaten woman, going either into a rescue centre or somewhere like that, or just moving out and trying to cope with all of the physical and the emotional trauma and find a new life at the same time, that's amazing.
It is. That's to me. I know sometimes people say about, I couldn't have done that. You're so brave. I always think, well, no, I'm not brave.
Yeah.
That's bravery. That's courage.
Yeah.
Because quite often, 9 times out of 10, they're not just on their own. They have young children.
Yeah, exactly. And they've got to try and protect them as well. So.
That's right.
But anyway, speaking of bravery, you were Police Officer of the Year, and you received several commendations for bravery and courage and compassion. So just by the fact that you've got all of that, you must have had some pretty hairy moments during your career. So can you tell us about them? What did you feel at the time, and how did you find the courage to react so well?
Oh gosh, I've had many hairy moments during my career, I must admit. Sometimes I think it's maybe me, I just don't think things through before I go. So like I'm 2 feet straight in, I've always been like that.
Yeah.
I think there's been lots of times when I've been convinced that I've taken one chance too many and that I wasn't going to get out alive.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, some very hairy moments.
Oh.
But it's knowing someone else is depending on you to make something right.
Yeah.
It's the fact that they need you more than your own desire to put your own safety first.
Yes.
They say sometimes you can have red mist and people lose their temper and you have red mist.
Yeah.
Well, I would say for the emergency services, we're exactly the same. Ours isn't red mist. I don't know what you'd call it, but it's a mist.
White mist.
It comes over you and you forget about, if you stood there and you thought, I can't do that because, I've got my own family at home, you're in the wrong job.
Yeah.
So it's whatever you're dealing with, like that sort of like, it comes first. I mean, I've had one, I've got a horrendous fear of heights. Absolutely. Yeah. If I go on, you get like the gantries, metal gantries where you can see through. Well, I end up freezing. I literally cannot go forward, backwards, Or I actually got brought off Blackpool Pier, I think it was in 1983, because I suddenly realised I could see through the slats, and that was it. I was
my God. Yeah.
But no, I had one particularly bad one where I was actually hanging over a motorway bridge.
Really?
Yeah, with a guy who was quite intent on taking his life, changed his mind, then his foot slipped. He was the wrong side of the barrier, and I just managed to grab onto his puffer jacket, and it was just, I remember seeing down below and thinking, I shouldn't have done this. But you do. Another time was running into a house and coming face to face with a female with a knife.
Oh, shit.
Tried to stab me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I always feel terrible. I've got a commendation for that one as well. But literally, God. I mean, I thought she had actually stabbed me, but fortunately, my shirt was a little bit on the big side, and the knife had gone through, through the side, through the front, and out the back, and completely missed me.
Oh, really?
But, yeah. And it's only afterwards that, when you sit down, your inner voice is like saying, don't do it.
Yeah.
But you do. Yeah. You don't really see it as courage, just see it as part of the job,
yes.
Something that you need to do.
Yeah.
I've always likened it to a bit of a strange thing. Excuse me. It's a bit like Superman. He changes into his outfit.
Yes.
Although we don't have a telephone box to do it in. But the uniform, you put it on, you feel different, and you do feel sort of invincible.
Yeah. It's like it gives you an extra layer to your persona.
Stronger, more capable of facing anything. Yeah. But if you take the uniform away, as I used to say to people, I'm just me. You know, I was Sheila's daughter, Emma's mum, John's wife, just a normal everyday woman.
Yeah.
But I just so happened to put a uniform on. But the public will always see the uniform as a, hopefully, well, I'd like to think that they see the uniform and they look to you to make things better.
Yes. Yep.
That's what your desire is as a police officer. I used to say that, you know, being a police officer was never going to change the world. But if I took the time to care, then maybe I could make a difference.
Yes.
And I'd love to think that during my career, I did make a difference somewhere along the line to someone.
You are listening to Anna Letitia Cook at Women Up Radio.
What do you think drives us women and helps us to be so adaptable and positive about the challenges we face and the changes we take on? Because even just listening to what you've just said, you're totally positive, and obviously you really adapted to everything necessary in your job. So for other women as well, what do you think drives us as a whole? Why are we so good at this? Because we are. I think women are really good at being adaptable.
We are, but there's no two ways about it. I think history has always shown how strong, positive and adaptable women are and continue to be. You know, we've got a resilience which I think is born out of an early treatment of our gender. You know, we're honest about it. You know, if you can imagine each directed criticism, inequality, every knockdown that you get, it makes you fight back harder.
Yeah.
It's not only by becoming equals, but leaders in certain fields as well.
Yes.
And particularly in previously male-dominated arenas of industry, politics, medicine, you name it. The list is endless.
Yes.
There is nothing that a woman cannot do if she puts her mind to it and she works to it.
Yeah.
Because we have that inherent ability to do that.
Yeah.
I look back, my maternal grandmother had 10 children.
Really?
10 children. They lived in a two-down terraced house, outside toilet and a tin bath, which 6 at a time got into. You know, 6 girls, they all out in the bath, squeezing in it.
Oh, really?
Now, she supplemented the household income as a cleaner. So not only was she looking after 10 children, she was cleaning. She was struggling trying to keep her own home. She was caring for elderly relatives because in those days you had extended families. That's how it worked. She was also helping my granddad on the market garden.
Yeah.
She dealt with the grief of losing 2 other daughters under the age of 4. One was killed on a railway line and the other one died from a brain tumour. But she still had the resilience and the strength to continue as the matriarch of the family, holding it all together. And she was confident to the neighbours and an active member of the community. That is one woman, one tiny lady that was about 4 foot 10 inches tall.
Oh, really? Amazing. Amazing.
I think maybe that the women in our family, we get our strength from the Nan Marriott.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and I think she epitomises where women get it from.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think women, if they're in a situation where they need to do something, they do it.
Yes.
They don't and ah about it. They just do it. So I think you're absolutely right. It's inherent. It's in us from way back. We just need to sort of open the door and let it out. So
that's the secret, I think. I think it's finding something in your life that allows that.
Yeah.
And then I call it a becoming.
Yes.
I've got to say I was 35 before I had my becoming, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It really did. And I can see it in my daughter.
Yeah.
I can see it in my granddaughters. So for me, it's wonderful that I saw it in my daughter when she was in her early 20s. So she was getting younger than I was.
Yeah.
My granddaughters are 6 and 9, and I see it in them.
Oh, amazing. Oh, which superb.
To me is wonderful that they have a strength of character. They won't be swayed. If they believe in something and there's something that they can do, they do it.
Yes.
There's not even a fear of failure with them, because if they can't do it, then they go and find something else to go and be strong at. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's great.
I think women as a whole are developing all the time.
Well, you particularly are a great a role model for all of these strengths. I mean, for courage, facing challenges, being adaptable and changing. And your transition from a policewoman to an author is a really perfect example, because it's not exactly an obvious transition, right? So what inspired you to transition into such a different career?
I think it was, I used to have a very happy knack of being sent to calls when I was in the police that were, should we say, a little different from the norm, sometimes quite bizarre.
Yeah.
And I once said to the control room, why me? Why do you send me to these? Because they really are quite normal.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you're easygoing, you've got a sense of humour, and we know that you'll deal with it, and you come back, and that's it. So the jobs I used to go to were clearly, they were a constant source of amusement when I used to recount the stories of what had happened when I used to get back to the police station. My colleagues always used to say, oh, you should write a book, because they weren't funny. I mean, we've got a black sense of humour in the job anyway. But some of them were, I mean, as you know from my book, there was one when I got sent to what was called as a suspected sudden death.
Yeah.
An elderly lady they haven't been seen for a few days. I thought, great, thanks for sending me to this. And creeping around the house, and eventually I found her in bed, and I thought, oh dearie me, yes, she's gone by the look of her. But you have to bend forward, you have to check just to make sure for signs of life.
Yeah.
And everything. And as I did that, she suddenly jumped up and swore at me and said, what are you doing in my bedroom? I have never been so frightened. But of course, came back to the station and I said, she wasn't dead. So she sent me to a dead person and she wasn't dead. I actually ended up making chicken soup for her and everything. She'd been ill for a few days in bed and hadn't eaten. But that is sort of like the example of some ridiculous things that used to happen to me. So I've been retired about 12 months, I think, and I was kicking my heels, and I felt that, I had still a lot of energy. Obviously, retiring in the police, you can retire quite early, and I retired at 55.
Yeah.
So I started drafting out an idea for a story, and it was featuring a 30-something single mum who wanted to become a police officer.
Yes.
So obviously based on my own life story.
Yeah.
And I came up with a character called Constable Mavis Upton, and that's how she was born.
She's brilliant.
She's literally, I mean, I got her name from when I first passed my police driving course. The very, very first 999 response run that I got sent to was a burglary in progress in a place called Mavis Drive in Upton.
Oh, really?
So that's where her name came from. I was terrified of picking a name that might be similar to somebody else's, and I had to bend them.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Came up with that. So that's how she came about. And I just wanted people to maybe see another side to policing,
yes,
a serious side to it. But we're all human under the uniform. Yes, we have a terrible sense of humour because it's a survival humour. We wouldn't get through some of the things that we deal with, some of the things that we see. If you're lucky enough to have the ability, my husband, he was a police officer as well, he could deal with terrible things and used to say, it's in my locker, and he'd lock the locker and go home, and he'd leave it in there. I couldn't. I used to bring it home with me, sleep at night, I get upset. And you do develop, it's a coping mechanism. Yeah. And I suppose this dark humour and very childish humour as well. Yeah, is we all have it, but no, that's how it came about. It was just a desire to be able to sort of like let people see sort of like a different side.
Yeah, and did you find it, because I mean, it's a really major career change, and I know you retired and then sort of started up doing that, but because it was so different, did you find it difficult? And was there anything that you had to take into account particularly? I mean, even for changing your attitude or changing your way of thinking, things like that? Or was it quite easy?
Yeah, I think I was very lucky. It wasn't difficult at all. I very much missed my career as a police officer. So I knew I needed to find something to direct my energies towards. And I've actually found writing quite cathartic. Yeah. As police officers, we're expected to have a very high standard of written file work. Statements for court are like telling the story. Yeah. You're presenting evidence about an incident or a crime, and the judges, magistrates, the juries, they've not been there, they've not seen it. Yeah. So we're expected to write a statement where you describe it so they can almost see, hear, feel, smell the scene. Yeah. And And I think writing a novel is very much like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It is. You want the reader to come with you on a journey.
Yeah.
To be there with you, feel as though they're part of it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't actually too difficult to make the transition because I had quite a good background in sort of like storytelling.
Yes. Yeah.
But when the police, it's true storytelling.
Yes.
And I think writing was, as I said, it was hugely cathartic to me because I had to deal with or consider how I dealt with sensitive issues.
Yes.
Such in the book, it's Mavis, but it deals with the death of my mum from cancer. So it's predominantly supposed to be a humorous book, but you have to have a balance.
Yes.
And it was trying to find a way of dealing with, in book one, Handcuffs, Truncheon and the Polyester Pond, it's dealing with the death of my mum.
Yeah.
Now, but still with having the humour in it, because even in death, there is something there that's, even my mum kept me laughing right up to the very end.
Yes.
And book two, I deal with, I look after my stepfather has Alzheimer's, so I deal with Alzheimer's. And again, it's a very sensitive issue, but there is humour in it.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. You have to see the funny side, or you would never survive it. Yeah. And I think this is an ability that women have.
Yes. Yeah. But I think your books are absolutely hysterical. I was crying with laughter at some points. And as I was on the train, I was getting some very strange looks.
Lots of people have said that, they've snorted, and got looks.
I know.
So, I did wonder how my sense of humour, how the sense of humour that we generically have as emergency services, how people would view it. And there's only been one or two reviews where they've not quite seen the funny side.
But it's not just emergency services humour; it's also the Scouse humour. Yes. Because I'm as you can tell from my accent, I'm not from up north. I'm from Suffolk, but I was married to a Scouser and I lived on the Wirral for 12 years, 14 years, something like that.
You were here.
And we were out and about in all the pubs because he was a musician. So it was with real Scousers, not just the posh lot on the Wirral, but it was
we're pseudo Scousers here.
Exactly. And the humour and the wit is amazing. The Scousers, they have such humour.
It's so quick.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very quick.
I love it.
Very funny.
But
the lovely thing is that they're not averse to taking the mickey out of themselves.
Exactly.
I think is rather lovely. It's rather a lovely trait.
Yeah. But you've got that humour and that wit in the book, as well as having a really cracking story in it. And with all the escapades, I was literally crying, really. My mascara was running down my face. Right? So tell me, with all these escapades, how close to reality are they?
Whoa. This is where I get myself into trouble.
Yeah, I don't want you to be sued for revealing things, but...
No, the characters are all based, sometimes loosely, on colleagues that I've worked with over the years. You have people that you work with, become very, very fond of them. They have the little traits and little foibles. And I just felt it was really nice to give my characters those traits and foibles because it makes them human.
Yeah.
So they're not just a figment of imagination. These people really do sort of exist.
Great. I want to meet them.
In the book, you've got poor Peter who gets in, so much trouble, and you can't believe that anyone could be so dense. But there actually was someone like that we all worked with, and that's who Peter's based on. So I'd never ever say who it is. Few people have said, "Is that so and so? Is it so and so?" And I think, "Oh no, I'm not saying." But it's the stories. Some of the stories are true. Yeah. Some are figments of imagination.
Yeah.
The funniest thing is that you get a lot of people will say, which stories are true and which ones, are the ones that you've made up. And if you read it and you think, oh my goodness, that can't possibly have happened, that's made up.
Yeah.
That's the story that's true.
Excellent.
It really is, because the ones with my imagination are more realistic.
Yes.
You think, well, that can happen. But no, it's to say the type of things that we have to deal with.
Yeah. They're amazing. They really are amazing.
It was a lot of fun to do. I felt sorry for my poor husband because every chapter, he never got a chance to finish a meal because inevitably I'd work late. He'd be having his dinner, and next minute he'd have my iPad shoved under his nose. What do you think of that chapter? And he never complained. I said to him, "You've never read my book." He said, "I don't need to." He said, "I've done it chapter by chapter by chapter for the last 4 years."
Brilliant. He's obviously very patient.
Yes, he's a very patient man. He's very good. I mean, he knows that the type of person I am. He always says, "I can never understand how you can be so ridiculous at times." He said, "You're so actually really intelligent." But the thing is, if it's funny and it can happen, it happens to me. So I'm actually a really good source for my own material.
That's brilliant. That's great.
As you know, I've just had quite major spinal surgery. And when I was getting ready, they came, they gave me the gown and stuff and told me to get ready. And you walk down to the theatre there if you came walking. And I'm there with my beautiful gown. I had it on the right way round, so I thought I'm doing really, really well here. And they'd given me a little plastic bag with like this blue paper pair of knickers in. And when I got them out, I looked at them and I thought, my goodness, they've got no legs in them. I thought, it must be do it yourself, for different thigh sizes.
Yeah.
So I spent forever sort of like ripping out perfect leg holes for these nice blue paper knickers. And as we're walking down to the theatre, the rather it was quite dishy actually, the anaesthetist said to me, "Where's your hat?"
Shit.
What hat? Well, it was a blue one in a bag. Yep, okay.
Oh God, that's
taken off then.
face.
That's the type of things that will happen to me. So that will probably make book 3.
Good. I can't wait. Okay, so we're coming to the end. So can I ask you, for women who are interested in going into the police, are there any tips or any bits of advice that you can give to them? Because as you've done your career there, you've obviously got to the top, you've got all these awards. I mean, you really are in a good place to give a few tips and advice to anyone who wants to join.
Yeah, I think the only words of advice I could ever give anyone is to say, yes, 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 you can do it.
Brilliant.
That is the biggest thing, because so many people will think, am I capable of doing this?
Yeah.
And it's not, just as a female. It's the fact that it does take a special type of person to do that type of career. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
Do it. Try it. Have a go. Don't sit there like I did for years. I could have done this in my 20s and I didn't.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the confidence. I didn't have the courage of my convictions. And I missed out.
Yes.
I missed out on another 10 years I could have